all sports franchises are suffering. Who knows what's going to happen as far as the WNBA season goes. No NBA, no NHL, no Major League Baseball. Sports fans are suffering out there. But hopefully we'll see basketball really soon. The guy that we have with us on the line right now, always a pleasure to have him on. Not only is he a fantastic coach of the Las Vegas Aces, he's an NBA champion, of course, a four-time NBA All-Star. Some great years with the Piston, played at University of Notre Dame. Also, Palo Verde High School, not too far from here in Southern California. The legend himself, Bill Laimbeer, joining us right now on the line. Coach, we appreciate you coming on. How are you?
Well, hanging in there. Everybody else is trying to figure out what the future holds.
Absolutely.
So what is a typical coronavirus, everything closed day for Bill Laimbeer? I'm just curious, what do you do to pass the time going through this pandemic?
Well, I have other responsibilities also. I'm also the president of the organization. So, we look at, everybody has to look at the employees, what is necessary, what is essential. You look at anywhere you can cut costs. You look at, your financial projections going forward. You try to organize players around the country to, understand what they're doing. And it's basically talking to some of the employees that are on furlough right now just to keep their heads up. And hopefully we have some light at the end of the tunnel coming soon.
Bill, do you think there will be a chance that a WNBA, and this might be a hard question for you to answer because I know you don't have a ton of control over this, but do you think that we could see WNBA games without fans, or if there are fans there, it'll be, they'll have to be social distancing? I mean, can you see something like that down the road?
Well, in the short term, meaning this year, that's probably the only way it can happen in any sport is to have no fans. I think the liability and just the logistics of it and the public backlash of having, fans in stadiums isn't going to happen this year. Will there be games? That's all hope so. We can play games without fans, made for TV events, which is where, if you read in the newspapers, that's where the finances are coming from. It's mostly from television contracts. And so I think every league is going to do whatever they can to the best of their ability to find a solution to play games, but it definitely will be without fans.
Bill, how weird would that be? I mean, in your playing career as a professional, did you ever play a game without fans? I would imagine the answer was probably no, but I mean, did that ever happen to you in your playing career?
No. You can play in arenas where the team is so bad they don't draw very many fans.
Right.
But, they have a clean site, so to speak, is the buzzword being used. No, that hasn't happened before. The G League, quite frankly, last year did it here in Las Vegas. They played in ballrooms.
Yeah, I was there. Yep.
You can make the ballroom look really good for television because you can have all the signs and the banners on the walls of the sponsors and the league, and there's no visual of an empty arena. And so it's been done before, no question about it. I believe that's a model for at least for basketball going forward. Obviously, football doesn't fly in that environment, even if it's baseball, or hockey. But for basketball, it can be played on any court, laid down anywhere, as long as you have the height of the building, and going to have at least 30 feet going up. But other than that, if the court fits and you have enough run out, you can do it easily.
And I'm sure you would agree, doing that is better than no basketball at all. At least the fans here in Vegas and across the country would be able to watch the games on television. Speaking of the Las Vegas Aces, Coach, let's talk a little bit about your draft. For Las Vegas Aces fans that are maybe unaware of the players you got, can you talk to me a little bit about how the draft went for the Las Vegas Aces? Maybe break down some of those players that you're excited about.
Well, we didn't really have any draft picks. We traded them all the way to get Liz Cambage last year, which is an outstanding move for our franchise.
Sure.
But this year we had a third-round pick, which I'm not even going to get into that one right now because third-round picks, traditionally don't really make the teams at all. So, we didn't have a first-round pick. We didn't have a second-round pick. In our league, in the WNBA, we're not the men. The men, a first-round pick is golden. In our league, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th pick in the draft is in the first round gets cut a lot. Because there's not a lot of jobs. There's only 144 jobs, and the competition is so enormous that they have to fight tooth and nail just to get on a roster.
Gosh, that's incredible. You mentioned Liz Cambage.
It's pretty brutal. It's like the world is today in the real world right now. People are going to look around and go, oh, wow. What was really nice, but realities going forward is going to be very brutal. So the competition to have jobs right now is going to be enormous.
Right. No question about that. Speaking of jobs and money, though, you had to be pretty pleased with what the WNBA set forth there in the last 6 months in paying players more money and taking care of players and travel. You must, as a coach and being around the WNBA as long as you have, you must be really happy that they've kind of stepped up to the plate a little bit and are taking care of your players.
Yeah, it goes both ways, though. Our league is not the most financially strong league around, but it was imperative that going forward to have a nice agreement and have a partnership with the players, we had to make sure we looked out in the best interest of the players to a point. Obviously, in today's world of the virus, stuff like that, retro looking backwards, it's going to hurt a lot more because we're going to lose revenue based on social distancing and no fans and just having people come back to the arena. So it cuts both ways. But as from a player's perspective, I think they made a commitment. They didn't ask for the moon. They knew our league was, always going to struggle, and it was a good partnership. Now, going forward, that partnership won't be tested, but it's going to have to be utilized as much as possible because we're all in this together to make sure that this thing is successful.
No question. And you know how big of a part of Las Vegas you guys have been, and I'm sure you would agree the fan support has been great at Mandalay Bay. Those games are so much fun. I speak for myself and say I have so much fun covering your games.
And it's good basketball.
It is.
It's actually good basketball to watch.
It's good, and it's a fun family atmosphere, and it's affordable. I think those are all key terms there, Bill. All right, so I have to ask you one annoying question, Coach, if that's okay. I'm sure you get annoying.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you get annoying questions.
Or a couple, because we have a few.
Bill, as you know, members of the media.
I don't know what's coming.
Bill, members of the media have been asking you annoying questions for decades. You of all people know that, and sadly you've had to deal with it. I know that you've done other interviews and you didn't catch The Last Dance, but I have to ask you this question as far as the shaking hands things, and I know you really don't care about that anymore, but I have to ask it from this perspective. If you're coaching the Aces, and let's just say you guys lose, you get routed by another team, one of your rivals, and your players decided, you know what, we're not going to shake their hands. We're just going to walk off the court. How would you feel about that as a coach, not the Bill Laimbeer, the player back then, but the coach of the Las Vegas Aces now? What would be your response to that?
Well, there's got to be a reason why. So, that'd be the first thing that you'd have to understand is why are they going to walk off and not shake their hands? Right. If it was a legitimate reason and it had a great emotional bearing, okay, I get it. If it's just to be pissy about the game or about the series, well, then that's not necessarily right because it is still a sports competition. But if there was an underlying, a very intense reason why, then that's the player's business. They are the show. They are the game.
And we don't need to go back to that, but I can see through what you're saying, and that it was more than just pissy about losing a series. Obviously, it was more than that when it came to the Chicago Bulls. I think I'm stating the obvious here, but is that fair to say?
Yeah, that is the obvious because we didn't care. Everybody gets beat, okay? You can't win every game in the whole world or every series in the whole world forever. Everybody gets beat. It was our time to get beat. It's just the manner of leading up to that for a year and a half did not sit well.
Bill, you've been on the record saying that you think that LeBron James is a better basketball player than Michael Jordan. You didn't watch the Last Dance. I did, and in that you actually saw when Michael Jordan was coached by Doug Collins, and you guys kind of locked him down when he was the one man show. Do you think that LeBron James would have won a championship or would have beat you guys back then with Doug Collins as a coach? And do you think that Michael Jordan would have ever won a championship if Phil Jackson was not his coach?
I'm not going to throw Doug Collins under the bus. He wasn't there that long. And Doug was a very emotional coach and very changes like the wind. So I could see the stability not being there in the long term for that situation. But I think probably Phil Jackson did a lot for Michael Jordan and made him involve his teammates. That was the biggest knock on him, I believe, early on in his career. That when LeBron came in, he was involved his teammates. He knew how to play team basketball, where Jordan was more of an individual sport until he learned that he has to involve his teammates. And he got better teammates on top of that, too. It helped him also. But but if you look at the difference in the two players, this is how I would look at it. You can't compare eras because everybody will be the star of the eras.
Right.
But if you look at Michael Jordan when he was in his prime, was 6'6", and he was one of the biggest guards out there. Very difficult to guard because of the size, and he had good jumping ability. Today, all the guards are 6'8" and 6'10", and they're very athletic, and they can play defense. And so an advantage of the height would be gone. LeBron James is 6'8", 285, and runs like the wind and jumps out of the gym in today's world, and he's extremely successful in today. Now, if you took you took LeBron James and put him back in our time slot, oh my God, he would have been even more dominant than he is today because of his physical strength. He's a beast, and league's never seen someone like that in a physical specimen as LeBron James.
So, Bill, obviously there's intersection between the 30 for 30 that you guys had with the Bad Boys on ESPN, which I had a chance to watch again last night, which was tremendous as a kid who grew up in Lansing, Michigan, and was a Pistons fan. Yeah, but it's interesting. I want to get your take on this. The whole dynamic with the Chicago Bulls and Chicago as a city. Given that you had a relationship, a very close relationship, obviously, with Isaiah Thomas, your point guard there in Detroit. And I just wanted to get your take on that because that's a situation where he was beloved in the city of Chicago. Isaiah was just absolutely heralded. And then all of a sudden you have that dynamic, right, of Michael Jordan coming on the scene in the mid-'80s as a star there in Chicago. That had to be something that must have been very strange, I'm sure, for Isaiah to have to kind of deal with, given that Michael Jordan, was kind of elevated that way.
Well, out of sight, out of mind is cliche for a reason. Isaiah was in high school and in college. He was associated with Chicago, but then now he's associated with Detroit, and that's professional sports. And the people of Detroit embraced him to no end. He was beloved in Detroit. That somebody else came along, it happens every day. New wind blows down the street, and somebody else takes over. And that's what Michael Jordan did, rightfully so. It became his basketball team and his basketball town. He sucked all the air out of the room, and rightfully so. So, in the early on part, I think it bothered Isaiah a little bit. But in the end of the day, he realized, it's a business and make the most of his opportunity in his newfound home of Detroit.
Bill, you always strike me as the kind of guy that, that stuff is in the past and, you worry about the future and what you're doing with the Las Vegas Aces franchise. I really appreciate that about you. I think a lot of people do. So with that being said, do you really care what somebody like a Horrace Grant, because I don't even know if you've heard some of the things that Horrace Grant has said about you guys in this Last Dance thing. I'm not even going to repeat some of the things he said because I'm sure you don't want to hear it. But I mean, do you care that Michael Jordan still has sour grapes, that you didn't shake his hand? Do you care what a guy like a Horrace Grant says? I mean, does that even bother you at all? Because you strike me as one of those people that you could give, a flying you-know-what.
Well, two things. One, unless you're a basketball geek, who's Horrace Grant?
Ouch.
And
that's funny.
And the second is, Michael Jordan, he can say whatever he wants to. He's entitled to that. It's his business. And he has the platform to do it, because he is one of the greatest players of all time. And then they come out with this how many series propaganda machine, and that's okay. I mean, he's selling himself. He's selling, it sells, especially when there's nothing else to put on television right now in the sports world. But, to each his own. I don't seek out the media. I don't want to do the media. I rarely do interviews, such as talking about the WNBA, because that's all the rest of it is past history, and it's a part of my life.
Right.
No regrets whatsoever. I have no rear view mirror. I only look forward.
Sure.
Bill, there was a lot of coverage about Dennis Rodman, the actual basketball player, not the off the court personality. And I've heard people recently they said that Dennis Rodman's probably the best on ball defender in history of the NBA. How important was Dennis Rodman's defense, in your opinion, to helping you guys win those two championships with the Pistons in '89 and '90?
It was imperative. We went from the highest scoring team in the league. We hold the all-time record of 186 points to the best defensive team in the league and arguably in history of basketball in their time slots. So we made a dramatic change. And it's personnel. You have to have the right personnel to play defense. You have to trust the individuals. You have to have people that want to embrace that, like Dennis did. And we had a guy named John Sally. He was a good, solid shot blocking person from off the ball, which helped us also. Dumars was a dogged defender. I was a plugger. Anybody came down the lane, I was always right in their face and made them pass the ball, and their teammates helped. So it's a team. Defense is a team sport, not necessarily an individual sport. So Dennis fit right in, but it was really good to have Dennis be able to put him under best small forward or at times their best guard, and not have to worry about that because he could take them out of the game, both physically and probably mentally also.
Yeah. Coach, on a lighter note, I like Asia Wilson's her style, her clothing style. I've noticed she's worn throughout the seasons some retro Bill Laimbeer shirts. I wanted to know what you thought about that. I enjoy them, actually. What has she said to you about that?
I've got a picture, Brian. I've got a picture, actually, Coach, of me and Asia together, and she's got one of those, those old character shirts from 1988, which has you and has Dennis and all the guys. Yeah, it's awesome.
What do you make of that, Bill?
They're embarrassing, but when you're winning, a lot of people, make stuff and not only to sell, but also have memorabilia for the future, and that's cool. I get it. I was never really. The only one I ever got in the middle of was a photo of Rick Mahorn and myself called the Bad Boys. That Rolling.
You're wearing the black hat, right? The black hat.
We're wearing black shirts and sunglasses and it was a Rolling Stone shot it for an article, and it came out so good that we bought the rights to it. And we had 5,000 of them printed, and we sold them to all of the like fast food shops in town as giveaways. And all the money that we raised, we gave to charity.
That's great. That's so awesome. I have to ask, when she strolls in to Mandalay Bay with one of those shirts, do you guys say anything to one another? Do you laugh? Like, does she say something to you? Do you say something to her?
Now, most of the time, what happens is, the women aren't going to come in a T-shirt or not. They're going to come,
right.
In today's world, they're going to come with their whatever style they want to present because their social media is taking pictures of them on the way in.
It's called a game day drip, Coach.
After the game is when she puts on the T-shirts for interviews and everything like that. So she's not coming into the game. She's coming into the game with her style on and her pearls and the whole bit like that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We've talked a lot, Bill, about you as a player, but I think it's important to mention you as a coach and how successful you have been. You took the Detroit Shock, correct me if I'm wrong, to 3 league championships, 03, 06, and 08. The head coach of the Liberty, you had some success there. And now here with the Aces, what you've done here in a few years, is incredible. Twice you've been the WNBA Coach of the Year. If you had to tell us in a few sentences, what is the recipe of success, Bill Laimbeer, as a WNBA basketball coach? What would you say?
I treat the players like I want to be treated as a player. I demand of them. I expect excellence and accountability at all times. And when they don't, I let them know. One of the things that all the players say about me over the course of time is I am a really brutal and honest person when it comes to just telling it the time of day. And that's foreign for almost all coaches. But the players really appreciate to know where they stand at all times. They're not guessing and not trying to do something they think the coach wants. They don't get themselves in trouble. So that, I hold people accountable, and I expect team play. All hallmarks of great teams and winners. And so they appreciate that, and that's how it works.
And I'm not asking you to throw anybody under the bus here, but do you feel like with some of these NBA coaches, it's more, in some instances, a players' league, and sometimes NBA coaches are put in a position where maybe they can't even do that, and because of that, maybe the players do not respect them. And I'm not saying that's the case with the majority of NBA coaches, but I do think it's fair to say in some situations, players lose respect for coaches that do not do what you do. Is that fair to say? What would you say with the player-coach relationship as the WNBA as opposed to maybe an NBA situation?
Well, I think the respect has to be earned. You're not going to find many Popoviches out there, but that's a longevity thing, and you have to have success early on. Otherwise, the players will look the other way, and you'll wash out. You only get so many chances. So you have to be in the right situation at the right time. And for a coach to be, have that opportunity for long-term success. There are exceptions to that rule, but very seldom. So I think you have to be honest with the players and there's so much money involved now. If you can't manage the players and keep them on the same page, they all go sideways because they all have egos. They all want to make more money. So it takes a special person to be a long-term coach in professional sports these days.
Do you think your approach would change at all from just the accountability perspective if you were coaching an NBA team? I mean, would you change your tone, or would you be the same Bill Laimbeer that you've been as a WNBA coach, just from that perspective of holding players accountable?
I'd be the same. I always said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay, I'll go get another job or retire. I've retired 4 times in different areas. So, you can't be someone you're not. If you try to be someone you're not, the players see right through you. So, and to each his own. What works to each his own for coaching. I would go do it my way, and if it didn't work out, well, okay, so what?
All right, Bill, last question for you. LeBron, it's 1989. LeBron James is driving baseline. You step up into him. He's coming at you. He's jumping in the air. What do you do? How do you handle the situation?
He'll punish me. He's that big and strong, and he's that fast, and he's got leverage, and he has a good core. So he'd run right through me. It would hurt. But, that's my job, is to be there, standing there when he's coming in that area.
Yeah, no question. Bill, I know you don't do a ton of this stuff, and I want you to know every single time you come on our show, we always appreciate you for doing it. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Vegas and the Vegas Aces organization, they're very lucky to have you. You're doing a phenomenal job. Please keep up the good work. Obviously, we hope we're going to have a season, but we also want to make sure that, the safety of the players and everyone in the organization, we have that as well. But, Coach, thank you so much for joining us as always. We really do appreciate it. And good luck, and we hope we have a season soon.
Me too. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks a lot,
there you
Bill.
go. That is Coach Bill Laimbeer, multiple NBA champion with the Detroit Pistons, 4-time NBA All-Star.